Hi, Ariel. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Freaked out because I just rewatched the film, literally just like maybe just stopped about maybe 10 minutes ago.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, it's okay. I mean, let's just kind of get into trim season. So first off, what possessed you to direct this and all that good stuff?
So I actually I was telling people because some people seeing that I have a writing credit as well are like, oh,
Yes.
what inspired you to do this? And I want to always give like the full credit to the team that came to me, as well as the privilege of the fact that they came to me at all. But it was Shawnee DeMott, his friends Cullen and Megan, who the story by credits, like they actually worked in the industry. So they had been,
Oh,
they had been throwing around different ideas of like, you're on these, you're completely isolated, no cell service, you're high, you're hearing these weird things. And Shawnee had also worked with Jane, who's, you know,
yeah.
amazing. He had just worked with her on a movie, The Free Fall, Adam Stilla's Free Fall. And she was looking for, like obviously V, like she's just so, just the most perfect, delicious villain. They were, it was a, what do you call it, kismet,
Yeah.
that they were talking about these, these weird farms and witches, and they had Jane. So David Blair, screenwriter, they were all working together with their experiences on the farm. And this, inherent character of Mona. Jane's also a producer, and just, just such an amazing, just to have her in my corner from the beginning. There was so much obviously independent filmmaking, logistics to fight for, that when they came to me, it was fall of 2020. So it was peak, like, pre-vaccine, everything is on Zoom. And they had seen actually a rough cut. T. Justin Ross, thank you again. He had sent a link. I think maybe they had mentioned like we're doing a trippy movie, like a very women focused trippy movie. And V Noir, my first film, hadn't come out yet, but it's also this like hallucinogenic, it's 60s based. But they, again, I'm so grateful. Jane and Shawnee, they watched that, and we started setting up Zooms, and I read the script, and we started talking about, you know, depending on where we were filming and who we were going out to, like really starting to, like just slightly tweak and shape that narrative.
Hmm.
But I was just, so excited for a variety of different reasons. But I think, all my like posters behind me, it's like what made me want to make films was Lord of the Rings, was Peter Jackson. And the idea of being on location, and I've had, the huge pleasure with like the Endless, with Moorhead and Benson, of, the things where you're literally, there is no cell service and you're dusty and dirty and all that stuff. But that's like what I live for. It was, and Katie Simon, my amazing production designer, we talk about watching the appendices of Lord of the Rings, and they're like, we're up at 4 a.m. in the trailer putting on Hobbit feet, but it was like that. So knowing that this was, as soon as they said like, oh, it'll be, we weren't sure the location, but they're like, it'll be the forest, it'll be the mountains. And like all of the, all of the light bulbs, go out, or go on, as opposed to being like, oh, okay, it's a pristine white marble mansion, like, not that I wouldn't be, honored if anyone's reaching out, but I was like, wait, this is in the forest. This is, we're literally just getting, down and dirty with it. So I was so excited to just, starting pulling all, Del Toro references and everything. So they were just such a collaborative team, instead of, just saying like, okay, you're bringing on as the director and here's everything that's been decided. We had, it's not it's not remotely a privilege to have been during the pandemic, but to have had a good year, as we had to sort out everything. A few months later, fortunately, there were vaccinations, and we could start, doing a couple meetings, safely in person. But we had, in my experience as a production designer as well, like an actual much longer lead time than most to prep ahead of time. We kept being
Hmm.
like, oh, maybe we could do. We were looking even at like some countries in Europe, and then there'd be COVID restrictions. We thought we'd shoot sooner, but then through that whole time, that meant, Jane and I were working on, the Mona, character, and what
Hmm.
her backstory would be. And as we're attaching cast, like I just wanted, if we couldn't have her going together to meet, that everyone would know these worlds so well. That, and I was so grateful that that's what happened. It was just like, okay, we're meeting on the day, first day of filming. It was day three, because we had 2 days with Beth Million and Alex Esso. Like, couldn't have asked, like, their friendship is the heart of the movie, so couldn't have asked for anything better. And then, but bringing in the whole, when the whole cast came together, that was like the van day. So we literally were just like throwing people in, and a lot of them are kind of meeting each other in the world for the first time. but again, they always, Bex and I had amazing conversations about Dusty. Ali, as Ali and I just says Harriet. It's just like it was such a great way to trust like whatever comes out naturally is going to ring true for these characters because we've had these COVID induced months of Zooms about it. So that's I'm not sure if that answered all of that,
No,
but
I
it's
think
like
it's I the thing that I'm glad you kind of brought it up because I think it's the most fascinating thing, and I think it was so. This is, why I love indie film is because you have to get creative, and the fact that it was during such a time where, honestly, horror saved my life during the pandemic. That's all I watched, but
yeah.
to be able to put together this film and gather the resources like it's phenomenal. And then again, I have to say you were just so hateful for what you put them through. Just
Oh God, I mean,
that's
yes.
that's what I was just like. I remember because the intro it lulls you in and then it just goes hard real quick. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing today. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And it's so like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So I just need you to know, like, it just that's what I loved about it, and that's why I just there were so many great things because you also talked about the friendship, but I also love that there's also this theme for also speaking up for yourself. I just one thing I want to know, just in terms of being in the film industry, are there times where you just want to, you know, speak up for yourself, whether it be a project or anything you worked on?
Oh, 1,000%. And thank you. I'm really glad. It's like there's so many. Sometimes you lose track of, or, a friend will be like, oh, was this like an element of you? And you didn't even like realize. You're like, oh wait, yeah, that was totally, I had this horrible Kia Soul that was always overheating and I was like dumping water in. But yeah, that like Emma, that there's the fantastical element and baked into obviously this concept of that Mona would have these, would be spoilers, sorry. I think it's in the trailer, but
Yes, it
that she's,
is.
the idea of controlling people. And but even on that like grounded, to try to, bring us into this world with these real, character dynamics. And there's so many moments. And obviously, in whether it's film or any other industry, like who holds the keys and the power dynamics if you're part of like
Yeah.
really like any marginalized community, like just being, the people be like bootstraps. And it's just like there are just so many things that, there have been so many moments where I've been, one of the only women on set, and there'll be a moment with with like an AD or something that the other people don't think is remotely gendered, but the few of us girls afterwards will be like, yeah, that I don't think they would have said that to like, or they didn't say that to the male DP, because I'm a union production designer, and there are just like
Yeah.
so many of those moments. And then inherent obviously in the cannabis industry, there's a lot of like exploitation of, women as trimmers. And yeah, that idea, to be able to tweak, elevate in the fantastical sense, a young woman like Emma just feeling so out of control of her life. So you have, you're introducing this just, the idea of this beautiful space away from Los Angeles. Um, but what would it was definitely, a question of, if we're doing any of this kind of like foil,
Hmm.
parallel dynamic, like with Mona, like what would it all resonate or, attract her to this scenario that is, and obviously an exploitive process, what Mona's doing, bringing these trimmers in before we know anything supernatural about it. But that idea of someone who has that, she has such full control of her sons, but that's not even a magic, there's no magic
Oh yeah,
exists
no,
there. it's
she
it's
is
with
just
her it's
like,
with her words and her poise. So for Emma just to be so the being so anxious, and I can relate, and that she's in this workplace and not even be able, very provable things to say, well, I didn't do XYZ to get fired, and to just not be able to like find her voice. That
hmm.
even all these obviously wicked elements we're seeing about Mona, to see someone so full, fully in control and purposeful with their actions and with their words. And yeah, I definitely not in the evil witch sense, but I've seen people where I was like, oh, how you can hold a room or a conversation, and that kind of, just looking at that, trying to find again the human element of just being in control of your life, and then the Suspiria witchy element, being in control of their bodies. So yeah, I feel like there were a few things I forgot to,
No, no,
touch on
it's
there. But yeah, I just loved that, like that she would have a reason to get there and have this breath of fresh air on the mountain of being like, maybe I am meant to be here.
I think no, I love that because I really do think Emma throughout the journey like just found her voice. But Mona, let me tell you,
Oh my God.
Mona, ooh, one, I don't know who dressed her because that was fabulous.
Haley McEwen. I realized I said like in passing, and then we were on a roll. Mary Beth is amazing from Dread Central, and I like had meant to shout out early today. Haley
I
McEwen,
love Mary Beth.
like Jane Badler. It's like not only is she incredible, but obviously like she knew this character, inside and out before I was even brought on. So one of the first calls was about how how she'd present herself and what is being said of how she's dressing, in a this backwoods farm, in all these different ways besides hiding her hands, or that like that it's like from another time, from another
Hmm.
place, and she has her sons doing the dirty work. And Haley, I don't know if I've ever in like well over 100 things I've designed seen a moment, and this is all Haley, like where someone, there's always some notes. There's always the like, I'll present something as a designer, as a production designer, and people are like, okay,
Hmm.
it's like a lot of warm wood tones though. Like, let's go a little more sterile and, glass and steel. Haley, when she even just in a Zoom, when Jane was still in Australia, started like pulling up, she was like, okay, we went through all these amazing like Tilda Swinton references, and everything that Haley was pulling up Jane loved. And when we went in person at Haley's studio, when Jane then first flew to LA, and we were doing the first, like wardrobe checks, it's like that's exactly, I've never seen something where it's like a no notes, you got it, like you nailed it. So that was amazing, because again, that was something that 2 years plus by the time we shot in the making of like Mona's development. And yeah, Haley, then we actually thought at first that she might not be able to, she would just be Mona, and then we were able to actually fly her to Salt Lake City, Utah, and she did the whole cast, amazing assistant Candace. And yeah, it's like that world, because again, like talking about the power dynamics and the control, the fact that it's like you see these more well, who's wearing thrifted clothes, who feels comfortable and comfy in their clothes, or who's trying to present themselves as like that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
who between the sons, who might have like what is she providing, why is she in these gowns and they're in hand-me-downs. It's like there's again that level of like control being spoke just in there's room in that huge cabin for other people, but
Oh, I
she's like,
know
I,
that.
I, I wear this and I live here and you have to be in this completely dirty shack. It's just like, that's all part of the, before any sort of magic comes into play, like how Lona is, presenting herself. And I feel like that very, there's like the old poem, the like spider and the fly, like inviting them into our parlor. And it was
Hmm.
always supposed to be these grounded character hearts of, our trimmers from Los Angeles. But then just seeing this, you know, almost like a once a year like ball that Mona brings these people in. And it's just, she's puppeteering long before she's physically puppeteering them. And it was just so much
I
fun.
love that. I'll end with this because something that also really just sticks to my mind every time, like when this was announced, this is finally coming out. I like again, I saw this, cup either last Overlook or the Overlook before last, and
Yeah.
I fell in love because the
So
color palette, the with like when the red, like the just red throughout the film, it is stunning. And like I want to know how you got to just what we see like on the poster. Like again, I was just like jaw hit the floor just because it looked gorgeous.
thank you so much. And I want to make sure I was like, always I'm like checking the time. So Luca Bazzelli is our cinematographer, and just such an honor. Again, this whole Zoom process. Katie, Luca, and I like we're driving around Utah just looking for random places before we could like officially like scout. I was like, I don't think my Honda Fit's gonna make it up this mountain. Like Luca and Katie and I had so much time together. Production designer Katie, that what was so amazing, without some people I'm like, is this ruining the magic of filmmaking, to say that actually originally that fine vague spoilers, yeah, that this sacrificial moment that's happening in that tent was even actually supposed to be in a barn. It was written to be in a barn, and through a bunch of different, we had forest fires, we had different things going on, we were running out of time, running out of locations, everything that happens, weather shutdowns, and we had like a wooded area just behind base camp anyway. And so maybe like a couple weeks out from it, I was like, we're gonna lose, this is such a emotional scenes besides, special
Yes.
effects.
Oh my
I was like,
God.
I don't want this to be on the back of the big location move. We try to, we find a good barn, but it's an hour away, and everybody, I was like, you're going to get, the heart of this moment if this is where we're doing, these other scenes. And Katie and Luca and I sat down at the Airbnb, and we were just trying to figure out like what, okay, nothing about it has to be a barn. Like what could, have that same, it's just a moment. It could be
Hmm.
ruins, it could be, and just that, I'm sure we were all like sleep deprived, but starting, we'd all watch the references and pulling up references of like, grow tents. Katie had done, had taken all these pictures, and we scouted actual farms in Humboldt County. So she has these grow tents. And, just having such an amazing team, Luca was like, I'm not sure how it would be exactly like motivated, but he was like, I know your references. Like I know, like it's in my, Zoom window is like the fall and Del Toro and things where I love like in Lord of the Rings, there's like a moment I think at like Helm's Deep where the DP, someone was like, oh, where's the light coming from? And he was like, the same place that the music's coming from. The great Andrew Lesney is like, so Luca was like, if it was like red, like I know that wouldn't make sense, but like grow tent red and just the three of us in our little Airbnb, like no sleep, we're coming up with this idea. Katie made a beautiful miniature, and Lucas' team, like had little like shelves we could like move in with flickering fire effects. And I was just so, I feel like that was like the value of being able to work with these people ahead of time for so long, that even if you're making a pivot, it's like an even better pivot because we knew that it was like, you almost have to over heighten these moments. You're doing fantastical. So when Mona starts really going for it, it's not going to be the same grounded world. So how are you elevating? It's like the performance and the score and the set, and to have this red tent. And yeah, it just, obviously it's the poster. It's just like as soon as I saw it, we have, as soon as someone walked in front, I think either the key grip or the gaffer, he had like a cowboy hat, and there was like a silhouette, and I was like, this is it. Like, why were we ever going to be in a barn? This is it. And but I feel like that's where it's like just knowing, going into anything, it's like, everything, even if it wasn't a forest, we had to figure out something. Like I'm sure Katie and Luca would have still knocked it out of the park because we knew the world and the references and everything so well. But I'm just so, it's just like every time I look at the poster, I was just like, I guess we were meant to like not get a barn and to have forest fires and thunderstorms and, you know, put up that actual, I think it was a frisbee golf area technically where we were filming. So when we were like scouting it, so not at night, we weren't interrupting the frisbee golf people, but when Luke and I were walking through it, we were like watching out for like, it was an active frisbee golf area. Like crazy.
Well, it turned out amazing. And I just honestly, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
And again, congrats. I'm so excited that people are finally going to get to see this. It just makes
No,
me
thank you. Thank you so much. No, and that means because it's like all of those, there were so many moments, like again, like speaking of like, yeah, Luca just to be side by side at camera. And he's like, are we even making a scary movie or just like a sad movie? And I was like, well, if it's sad, that means like the characters work. So like I hope it's also scary. But like you don't know. So to hear, like I'm just so glad. And I saw, you talked your posts and everything. I'm just so, it's like that makes it all like worth it to be like, we were just in the mountains overnight, and to be like, is this, are we hitting the, it's my job. All the actors and crew are doing, their job. And it's just like, if it resonates, like you're saying, it's like, that's, I can sleep at night. So thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And have a great day. And I'm sorry
You
the
too.
trauma of watching it like first thing in the day. Like it's not like a,
Oh, that's
like
like
you don't leave
it's
that
what
movie
wakes me
being
up. I
like,
love it.
okay, good, good.